All right. All right. Welcome back to the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I am Marcos Conan Negron, and beside me here is Ben, the Jet Rhett brother. How are you feeling today?
I am fabulous, Marcos, because my team is doing really well right now.
And mine is sinking. So before we
Mm.
get into this, I'm going to start with a little random dibble dabble. What are you doing this Christmas?
You know
Get
what? It's just spending it with family. As every year, we're going over to my parents, and it's probably going to be the last one at my parents because they're moving out from California over to Tennessee or Oklahoma or something like that. So this one's going to hit a little bit different. It's
Yeah.
definitely going to be, one of those, cherished memories, but I'm
Aw.
excited. It's Christmas time has always been an awesome time for me. I've always loved the Christmas season. So yeah, looking forward to it. What about you?
This year, we're keeping it low key. So, I got to see Mama Ruth a couple weeks ago, and she's doing great. So that was great to have her here. And
Shout out Hootie.
yeah, and after that, so we're just gonna be chilling out. I'll definitely be watching football, watch a couple Christmas movies. We already got a bunch of them knocked out already. So,
Love
um,
that.
yeah. So with that, let's get down to business. So
Yes,
on
sir.
Christmas Day, we're gonna go in reverse. We're from here on out, we're going for the team who has the best record. And not only do they have the best record, they look like the most dominant team in football versus the AFC's best. So on Monday night, the San Francisco 49ers played the Baltimore Ravens at home. Ben, before we get into that, let's break down what happened last week with the Arizona Cardinals. How you feeling after a pretty freaking dominant showing?
I loved it. I talked about it last week that divisional games that can go either way. It's in any given Sunday scenario, but it's even more so when it comes to those divisional games. And especially with the Cardinals, it seems like we've struggled even with Kyler Murray the last few years, just trying to contain him, keep him in the pocket. When he does escape, it's like he converts a first down, and then they just keep driving on us. And so there was concern going into the game, but I did feel like this Niners team is a little bit different than the last 3 years that he's been tearing us up, and they came out and proved that. And I was thrilled with the result. Um, the Cardinals, they did a great job early on. The first drive of the game, even just going down, they were marching us. I mean, McBride is his top receiver, and it's not close. They target tight ends like no other. So it's cool to see how Arizona plays the game of football. But they're definitely many pieces away from being an elite team.
For
But
sure.
they have those footsteps and those stepping stones rather, to build a really good team. It's just
Hmm.
it's a matter of putting those final pieces together. So ultimately, to see the Niners come out after halftime and put on again another just display of dominance, learning their opponent as the game progresses from quarter one to quarter four was phenomenal, and it was everything I expected. I When we went down 7-0 in the first quarter, I was concerned because that's how I am.
Right.
And I know this Niners team has proved to me this year more often than not that they can rally. Um, when we went down 7-0, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose this game because it's divisional. It's a mess. We just had two emotional games. Like we're due for a loss, right? But
Hmm.
they responded. And then Javarius Ward, I believe he is a top three cornerback in this league. I will fight you on this. I don't
He's
care.
playing like one.
He's balling, man. That pick
Hmm.
six was phenomenal, and he's played great defense and against some top receivers. I mean, let's talk about those Seattle games for 2 seconds, holding DK Metcalf to as many yards as he did. Like, that's a top receiver in this game physically and just statistically. So I love what I saw from Travarius in this game. And that pick six really established kind of the rhythm of the game going forward. So awesome to see. I'm going to be honest with you. I know I said that I'd die on the hill of Brock Purdy being MVP,
Oh.
and I still do, because statistically and how traditionally this award has been granted
Hmm.
is by quarterbacks. But it is so evident, Marcos, that Christian McCaffrey is the MVP.
For this
Not
team.
not just for this team. It's across the league, man. And I know you're not fighting that. If you look at the impact this guy's having, you put him on any team. We've talked about this a few weeks back. You put him on any team, he's going to have an insane impact, and he's going to get you at least 6 or 7 wins. 6 or 7 wins alone. Whereas Brock probably gets you like 2 or 3, right?
As of right now, but
for sure.
But for sure, I think it's been awesome. And the fact that you are going to have the MVP and the offensive player of the year at the same time is going to be great. And again, I'm not going to argue that. I think that's the argument's over. Like, there's no sense in arguing it anymore. I think if the thing is, if they're mad, if anybody like the voters or media pundits who talk about how this is done are mad about it, then they need to change it. Or like make if they're worried about, oh, it should go to the best player, then make a best QB award. Like, do something like that to switch it up if they're really that upset. But as it is right now, Brock is going to win, albeit depending on whatever happens to Monday, but Brock should be the MVP by all measures. Like, the past 10 years have said, history of the past 10 years have said he is going to win the MVP. So as great as Christian does, unless Christian just goes berserk and averages 200 yards a game for the next 3 weeks, then that'll be a different conversation. But it's more likely that Brock will win it. But no, I agree with your take.
Yeah, and I love what I'm seeing. The biggest difference, if I had to make a comparison between the last, let's say, since 2019 to this year, right? 2019 was our last Super Bowl run. The biggest difference that I see between this team and that team, our record in 2019 was actually a game better. We were 11-2 at this point. And right now, like, we have an insanely overpowered offense, which is something that we couldn't rely on in 2019 because the guy that was holding us back was Jimmy Garoppolo. We didn't want to admit it because we were like, he's game managing. That's all we need him to do. Like, he's getting us through where we need to go. He'll get us occasionally a 3-and-out and things like that, and we'll put up 25 points a game, and our insanely awesome defense is going to hold the other team to like 17 points, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll win low scoring ball games and sometimes high scoring ball games. But I mean, look at the Chiefs game in the Super Bowl, right? Lost that game because we couldn't pull anything together on offense. And you're not going to beat that version of Patrick Mahomes with just your defense. You have to have an offense. And that was why we lost that game. Yeah. So that's like, a lot of people talk about what the biggest difference is now. That's the difference, guys. We're averaging almost 30 points a game, and we've played those top teams. We've played the Eagles. We've played the Cowboys. We've played teams that they're considered a tough opponent, and we've run the table on them, offensively and defensively.
You have a great chance on Monday to continue that.
And that's what I'm looking forward to, because this is like the last test in a way. It's like the last I guess step to see exactly where we're at. We've faced the Jaguars. The Jaguars were at the time considered one of the best AFC, if not the best at that week AFC team, right? And I was like, all right, it'll be a close game. We're coming out of the bye. We're good on buys, like, yada yada, whatever. Wow, we blew them out of the water. Okay. All right. And then the Jags kind of regressed a little bit. And then here come the Ravens up on top. And now it's like, all right, Monday night, Christmas night. We got 3 potential MVP candidates battling it out for MVP. But what it really comes down to, because, yeah, that's going to be awesome to see who's going to be the MVP. If Lamar pops off, Brock pops off, or CMC pops off, they're the MVP favorite. But what it really boils down to is who's the Super Bowl favorite. And that's going to be the exciting part. And I'll get into that a little bit as we progress to that week. But ultimately, love that Cardinals game. I really like the Cardinals team, except for Kyler Murray, because he should have been in Oakland Athletic. But it's fine. I will be fine. I will get over that eventually, maybe. But
Las Vegas Athletics now.
Yeah, don't talk to me about that.
We'll do that later.
That's a lot later if we ever get around to that.
Yeah.
But it was a fun game. It was exciting. It was everything I wanted from that game,
Mhm.
and just good to see the team put up 44 freaking points.
Oh yeah, you guys again just flexed your muscles again, and it was good to see. And I liked what I saw from the Cardinals, like you mentioned. I think the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon took. I think he's learning a bit from what he took from Philadelphia in the terms of, because there was at times where if there was one nitpicky thing was the run defense, right? Like, they were able to run the ball, and obviously you guys are hurt in the defensive front, so that does take away a little bit, but. That's good. That's a good stepping stone for them, especially if they do plan on building around Kyler moving forward.
Yep.
And that is one thing that worries me when we eventually do go to face them next week. So, um, I like what I saw there, but I already, it just felt like, Brock was going home to Arizona. Like it just felt like everything had the makings of the Niners, setting the stage and just continuing to run the table. You guys look good, and you guys look great, and will continue to. And I'm just as hyped as you for Monday. I'm more excited for that game than my own, and because I'm trying
The
to
whole
avoid.
league, the whole league is excited to watch. Like anybody
You,
who's an NFL fan, this is Merry freaking Christmas, guys.
yeah,
This
you
is
normally don't
the
get
matchup of
this.
the year.
You normally don't get it this late with teams who are playing this well. The top two teams in the NFC and AFC. I think it only happened one. Like this happened a couple times.
Yeah.
But the weird part about it though, the I think the past three matchups for the number one and number one in each conference that have happened this late in the season actually did not end up being the Super Bowl matchup moving forward.
Don't you dare tell me that. That's not good. I don't like
Uh,
hearing that.
the last time it happened, it was the AFC team that made it. I'm just gonna say it, and we'll get down to it later. But I did find that there. But
That's interesting.
I know I heard about it on First Things First earlier. It was either today or yesterday. But
Mm-hmm.
um, what was is there any final thoughts you had on this game, like that you really felt like, I guess, stood out because it just looked like business as usual, which I guess is just, that's scary to think about too.
There was one thing that I neglected to mention, and it wasn't business as usual, and that was that we were struggling to tackle in this game. And that is a legit concern going into this game against the Ravens, who are an aggressive team, who are looking to make a statement against this Niners team that they feel they shouldn't be underdogs against.
5 point
And
underdogs is wild. I'm not gonna lie.
it really is. I would expect like 2.5 to 3,
Mm-hmm.
but like 5.5, that's wild in my eyes. I'm like, really? So I guess it's because it's at Levi's. Like, there's probably factors that play into it, and
Can't
considering our
wait.
dominance against those top teams, like, it's cool. And I love the trash talk that's coming out of it. Like, those Ravens players they're pumped, and they're amped. They're pissed off that they're underdogs, and I love that.
Oh, for
Bring your
sure.
best, please. Please bring your best. And yeah, like, I'm definitely nervous considering how many missed tackles we had. Mind you, we were a little banged up in this game,
Mm-hmm.
especially on our D line. So we were missing some key players that typically would make a play here and there that weren't there. So obviously that is a factor, but just I can't remember, was it something Connor, their running back,
James
Arizona's running
Conner.
back, James
Yeah.
Conner, baller, man. And
Oh
we
yeah.
made him look like a freaking Pro Bowler at times. Like, he was running through us, and he's an aggressive running back. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
scares me is when I look at the Ravens offense, all those guys are aggressive like that.
For sure.
So if we're not ready, healthy or not, if we're not ready to make a tackle, this could be a tough game.
For sure. And again, we'll break down. We'll still have a lot more to unpack with this game moving forward. But was there anything else from this game that you'd like to add in? Anything you saw?
Not at all. I'm happy.
Well, you may be happy. I'm not. So
Why not? What happened?
Oh, because my Eagles have been playing like absolute garbage. So
Yeah.
let's not. I'm not gonna. This is gonna be tough to say the least. Everybody, like, this is gonna be tough for me to get off my chest. But so the Eagles lost on Monday night to the Seattle Seahawks 20-17 after Drew Lock engineered a wonderful game-winning drive. Shout out to him on that part. And I loved his response after the game. It's super cool. I waited to break my TV until after his interview, so it's okay there. So So the Eagles are now 10-4. Fortunately, helped by the Dallas Cowboys getting washed by Buffalo at the same time on Sunday. So that was huge in the sense of we are still semi in control of our destiny for the NFC East. The number one seed, I'm not as confident in anymore. It's very low chance there, but we could still repeat as back-to-back champs there. But we got to talk about a little bit of like lead up into this game. So you and I did the Friday Five. We recorded on Friday. Eagles game was on Monday.
Yep.
Saturday, the news comes out of nowhere that Darius Slay had arthroscopic knee surgery and that he would be out, and he will probably be out for a couple weeks but he should be back for playoffs, which the Eagles have already clinched. So he will be back. And honestly, that to me is good because he is one of the older aging guys, and I think a few weeks rest will do him some good. So I'm not even that concerned about it because he's not the cornerback that was concerning to begin with. So I'm not worried about him. But then, so we find out he was gone on Saturday. And then Sunday morning, we find out news that, so Sean Desai has been the culprit of having a bad stretch. The defense has looked horrendous against the past couple of games with the Niners and the Cowboys. So the Eagles felt like it was time to make a change. And we let Matt Patricia, who has never, ever had like the best defense that he's had was 16th back, and that's when Belichick was holding his hand as a defensive coordinator.
Ugh.
So all the times he was with the Lions as a head coach, they were bottom five defenses, and they played tons of man coverage, and the Eagles are also bottom five without him as in man coverage. And so again, I'm sure the players, they said that they really liked his knowledge, that what he brought to the table, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't liking what I was seeing either. But at the same time, for a team that has had so much success, and like this was the most insane overreaction. I wasn't planning. I couldn't even fathom that a team that's 10-3 would react this way. Like that's not the way a team who is fine. You're 10-3. Like you're good. Like you're firmly in the playoff race. You still had a chance for the number one seed. You don't need to panic. You don't need to show everybody that you're panicking. And at the same time, they're trying to do this behind the scenes. They're trying to say, oh, Sean Desai, he's still the defensive coordinator, but he'll be up in the booth, Matt Patricia. And then it comes out like an hour later, oh, Matt Patricia's calling plays. He's the defensive coordinator. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, I don't know what's going on. And you're doing this before a Monday night game. You could have done this earlier in the week. You tried to keep it hush hush. So now the only narrative that could be talked about the Eagles on Monday is, oh, how is this defense going to look? It's going to be all about this defense that was already struggling to begin with, and changing Matt Patricia, that wasn't going to make the difference. It's a personnel issue. The Eagles have a personnel issue. And we'll break that down just a little bit more. But then on top of that, Eagles, Jalen's sick. We're not sure if Gino's going to play. It's like all this, like, what's going to happen here? Jalen had to go on a separate plane, and he's been pumped full of IV. Was clearly he already looked
He was
stoic to begin with.
sluggish.
He looked stoic in general, but he looked like out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm still not going to give him any excuses because when you're out there playing on the field, you made that choice. You need to go out there and do the best that you can. And so we get to the game, and offense comes out great. First score right out of the gate. And Jalen's looking good. We're using him in QB runs. We're doing great, right?
Hot start.
So the thing that has plagued that now I can have time to say this, the thing that, like, for me, what's been infuriating me, and I message you all the time about it, is like our play calling. And people want to rip the offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson. It's not his fault entirely because you got to blame Sirianni for this. This is Sirianni creating the issue. He's the one who designed this offense. He may not be the one calling the plays, but he is giving Brian Johnson the sheet. Here is my plays that I want us to run. You call the plays. You know what I want to call, but you're going to be the one calling it. Brian Johnson is like, the offense has been, it's felt like it's been 4 or 5 of the same exact plays over and over and over and over again. It's like, and I can't fault them entirely because last year it worked. Last year it was like, hey, we have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. we're only going to throw them the ball and it's going to work. And this year, everybody knew it's coming. And the Eagles decided, oh, we're going to do the same thing and not have a counterpunch to anything. So we're just going to keep running the same 4 or 5 plays. We're going to have AJ go on a go route or come back on a curl route, maybe do a slant. But then, so the Eagles will open up quarters, like the first half and the second half, like their first drives of each of those halves always look great. And then all of a sudden it's like, they're like, okay, those plays worked. Let's just throw out something completely different. Let's go away from what worked. And we're just going to try and do this, do that. And it drives me insane. It's like they forget all the plays that worked and they're refusing to make changes. And they're saying, Jalen made a couple questionable decisions. So he obviously got picked off twice in this game. And the first interception, you don't throw the ball to Quez Watkins. That dude is bad. Very, very bad. The fact that the Eagles keep running plays for him is mind-boggling to me. He shouldn't be on the field. You're just like, oh, he's fast. Yeah, and then he has nothing else to him.
Nothing else, yeah.
It's been shown. And
he can't even run a route properly right now.
And there was a miscommunication on that play too. He was trying to tell AJ something, and AJ wasn't even like, he didn't even look his way. And the problem with the way the Eagles are coaching Jalen is they're saying, hey, we are a deep ball team. If you think that this look is the right one for you, you can take the deep shot. We're gonna live with whatever decision you make. And when you have a player like AJ Brown, that makes sense because he can win a 50-50 ball. And that's usually the logic that they can justify, and that makes sense. But you're throwing it to Quez. It was underthrown to begin with, and Julian Love might have gotten away with the hold, a penalty, sure, but you're still throwing it towards the safety side. You're not giving Quez the real chance to get it, and Quez didn't even want to try and get it. And so I don't blame Jalen fully for that. And there was another third down. Like he's made some questionable decisions in this game, and I don't know if it was because he was sick or whatever. I'm not going to give him that excuse because there was one third down when we had the chance to put the game away where it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, and he gets the ball to clean pocket, and the Seahawks blitz on that play. Bobby Wagner stunting. Jason Kelce looks like he stumbles a little bit, but he recovers. But Jalen instantly leaves the pocket. It was clean. They didn't even let time develop on the routes. And now he's just running around. He goes from one side of the field, he goes to the other, and then he throws it short to Dallas Goedert. And had he just let the play develop and, go let the progressions happen, he would have had a better chance there.
Yeah.
And there were so many. Yeah, go for it.
I got to be honest with you. I'm going to interrupt you because I feel like Jalen's been making those mistakes the last 3 weeks, and that dates back to the first game being the Niners game. He made mistakes in that game. He made mistakes in the Cowboys game, and then he makes mistakes in this game. And I'm wondering if it's a trend against teams that, are a little more difficult. Not saying that you guys haven't played difficult teams early on in the season, but games where, the Niners game, the Niners were favored in. The Cowboys game, the Eagles were favored in that, right?
The second Cowboys game, the Cowboys were favored. The first, the game at home, the Eagles were favored. Each team that was at home was favored.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like games that something is riding on, a lot is riding on that this one game, this one, situation, this one matchup. He's making he's trying to go for these big plays, and it's not paying off for him because going back to what you said, they don't have the personnel for it. Do you think offensively, other than AJ and Devontae, I can't even say Devontae is a personnel you can take a shot at right now because he hasn't done enough this season, in my opinion.
Well, and that goes back to the coaching. That goes back to saying, hey, this is why I watched the Niners game and I'm losing my mind because I'm like, I wish I had someone who can construct a play the way Kyle Shanahan does, or guys are just running free, running wild.
Kyle's a blessing.
It's insane. And I'm looking at this high school looking ass offense, and I'm thinking like, you're just telling these guys to run 4 routes: a go route, a curl route from 15 yards, a slant, and then or a disgusting looking screen. I don't understand why we're letting Devontae Smith try to block for Dallas Goedert when he's the smallest dude on the team.
Those
And
screens need to stop. They're not
they need to
working.
stop. I don't understand where they're coming from. Like, if you're going to screen, let Dallas Goedert be the one who's blocking because he's an awesome blocker. I don't know what we're doing here. And if you, or give a screen to AJ so he can try and bully people. Like, and the way they were doing it was so bad. I was losing my mind. So again, it comes down to what are they doing to put their players, they're not using their personnel the way they should. They're not putting them in a position that works. And we could say, oh, Shane Steichen was like the mastermind of this. They ran very similar concepts, but he just had more counter punches. And guys, it was his second year in the system. He could do a little bit more with it. But that's the problem with good teams, though. Good teams, you lose your coordinators. So you always have to deal with that when you succeed. And, the Lions are going to go through that next year when they lose Ben Johnson. And, the Niners might have to do that again, too. It depends on, whatever. It really does. Like, people have, fortunately, Kyle Shanahan is the play caller. So that offense will never really struggle so long as he has the pieces and so long as, he can still control it, however.
Yeah. One thing for sure is winning hides weaknesses. And when you're 10-1, you just don't see those weaknesses, right? And this was the frustrating part for me, not being an Eagles fan, being any other fan of any other team, watching the Eagles from week 8 on, they haven't been any different, in my opinion, from this week to week 8. When there was the Chiefs, when it was the Bills, even that first game against the Cowboys, I was seeing the similar trends that the Eagles were doing. It was the similar style offense to last year, predictable, same style, 5 plays, right? Defensively, they're sluggish. And then ultimately, at the very end, I hate to say it, man, but it looked like luck every single freaking time. And then the Bills game, luck. Like, and I'm not saying like lucky win, I'm saying lucky plays. Josh Allen missing the wide open receiver on just throwing to the wrong side of his shoulder. And then Patrick Mahomes missing not missing.
MVS dropping in the ball, yeah.
Exactly. Like, there were so many factors that played into why the Eagles weren't, 8-3
at that
versus
time.
10-1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your season could be entirely freaking different if those 2 plays were converted.
Oh, for sure.
And this is, yeah. And like what I'm getting at is, like, when you're 10-1 and then you go into the end of this gauntlet here, and you play the Niners, you play the Cowboys, and then you play Seattle. And I'm not saying Seattle's part of that gauntlet at all, but you play the Niners and the Cowboys, and those are 2, I hate to say that the Cowboys are a legit team, but those are 2 legit teams. Yeah.
Right. At home they
especially in Dallas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a legit team for sure. And that, that lucky situation, those lucky things kind of stop paying off. Mm-hmm. And it opens up, like, it shows you exactly what this team is. And it's concerning. Like, if I was an Eagles fan, or rather if I'm a Niners fan and this happened to me late in the season, I'd be like, well, crap. The playoffs are right around the corner. Mm-hmm. And right now we're changing everything up schematically. Look at the coaching. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, we're looking at our personnel and going, what the flip do we have? Like, we
don't have answers. Right. Agreed. No.
It's scary, man.
You make a perfect point. And based off of these last 3 games, and again, I will die on the hill that the Eagles versus the Niners and the Cowboys were set up in a position to fail, and you play your schedule, whatever. But we're worn out because we've had to play these heroic games prior to. But then we get to the Seahawks game. There's no excuses here. You don't let Drew Lock go 92 yards. You did everything right. Like, even the defense, you can say what they want. Like, they technically allowed 13 points, sure, but Kenneth Walker was running all over them. They were just, the Eagles don't have the personnel. They have a problem. Howie banked on the wrong things, and I can't credit him for wanting to stick with what worked, right? But then when it's not paying off, the Eagles defensive front only got 3 pressures on Drew Lock. And 3 pressures. 3. And 1 sack. Great. But and then on top of that, our cornerbacks can't stay home. Now we played our youngest player in the draft, cornerback out of Georgia, Keely Ringo, and he did great. Like against DK Metcalf, he was holding his own versus him. And then they decided to put Bradbury on DK on the last drive, and they go 5 for 5 against James Bradbury alone.
Bradbury's
And
trash.
within the Niners, within the Cowboys, and within the Seahawks, he's allowing 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like it's bad. So I'm going to say this right now about James Bradbury because I appreciate the professional that he is, but he's washed. And I don't know if it's because he's older and tired. So my advice to the Eagles, if they would never listen to me, but I would, at least these next 2 weeks, sit James Bradbury entirely. Don't even let him go on the field. Let him rest. If he's just worn out and can't keep up with these guys right now, let him rest until the playoffs because the
Yeah.
system isn't changing that much. And give these young guys a chance to at least show us, like, hey, if someone goes down, or maybe we need to switch things up here. I want Keely to start the rest of the way because I think he actually has a legit chance because he looks athletic. He's a taller guy. He looks like he has potential. So that was one silver lining. But I don't like Bradbury has killed us. He has been the lone reason, on top of the fact that our linebackers like Shaq Leonard looks like a shell of himself. There was a reason nobody really was able to sign him, and that's the reason Indianapolis let him go. There was a play where you're watching the all 22 and he's just not moving the same. The
Yep.
injuries have caught up to him. And
Yeah.
it's so now we seriously, with Zach Cunningham continuing to be up and down with the injuries, he's not even that great. He's just decent. Like our linebackers suck and our corners suck. And we don't have an answer because our answer was supposed to be our defensive line fixes our problems. And then we got so confident in the D line that we had, which consisted of a rookie, Jalen Carter, who still hasn't played a full NFL season. So you do hit a wall of some sorts, right? Like when you play that physical of a position, you hit a wall. The older guys have played more snaps this year than they played. They played the same amount of snaps by now. So it's week 16 now. They had less snaps than this by the time they hit the NFC Championship game last year.
Oh,
They are playing so much more.
jeez.
And we got rid of Derek Barnett and Kentavious Street because we were confident with the kind of rotation that we had. But then you watch guys like the Niners, teams like the Niners, who just have pieces on pieces on pieces. That if you're never worn out, and that was our thing last year. We were just never worn out. And I'm gonna give I can't give them benefit of the doubt, but what's different is the Eagles last year were playing a second place schedule. We were playing teams that weren't the same. We were playing the second worst second easiest schedule in terms of offenses that we were facing. This includes backups and everything like that. This year we're playing the third most difficult. And throughout this gauntlet, through those 6 games, we played 5 of the 6 5 out of the 6 offenses were in the top 10 and 3 of them were in the top 5. So it's like there was already naturally going to be regression. And at the same time, the Eagles' luck, and this happens every year. One team just the ball bounces their way. Last year, we led the league in turnovers. Last year, we led the league in sacks. This year, we have the fewest amount of turnovers in the league, and we are turning the ball over the most, in the league. And Jalen Hurts has turned into Josh Allen in the sense that he's turning the ball over just a ridiculous amount. And
Yep.
again, part of that is schematically what they're asking him to do. Like on that last play, they were like, oh, on that last interception to AJ Brown that ended the game, right? Where Julian Love made that insane catch, got help from his teammate to get his toe down, all that stuff. That's awesome. Like, I'm not going to take away anything from that. Nick Sirianni said that they were trying to draw a pass interference on that play because it had worked a couple times during the year where, if you throw, and that is kind of a play that you can employ. If you throw the ball short on a go ball, the guy has to come back, the defender runs into him, instant pass interference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, at the beginning of that route, AJ did win that route. Jalen threw it short,
Yep.
and he had a little too much air on it, and allowed Julian Love to catch that ball. And it's like,
if only he had Brock Purdy.
And at the same time, when we think about the like Nick Sirianni has prided himself on being a game manager, and yet they make the dumbest situational football play. You
Yeah.
have a kicker in a Hall of Fame kicker at this point in Jake Elliott, who has not missed a game tying or game winning field goal plus 50 yards in his entire career. He just made 3 weeks ago, he made a 59 yarder in the pouring rain. You're in the same exact situation, and Jalen had just given you your only explosive 20 plus yard play of the game with a run. You have 2 timeouts left with 13 seconds to go to get 17 yards, and you could work the middle of the field because they were working the middle of the field early in the game and decided, oh, you know what? We're just going to go away from what worked. We're going to try and make things more difficult for ourselves. And they go for a goal ball when they didn't have to. They could have worked the
Yeah.
middle of the field. On that play, Kenneth Gainwell was just chilling there, wide open, right on the dump off. You give it to him, let him get a few yards, call a timeout. Do the same thing, call a timeout. Jake Elliott would have a good chance. I'm not going to guarantee anything, but he would have had a good chance to hit that field goal.
You
That's
would have. Yeah.
horrible situational football, and something I just was not. I was bewildered. I was telling you, I was like, "Oh, we're in position for a Jake Elliott kick. I'm ready for it." And then they throw this goal ball, and I'm in disbelief. I was like, what are we doing play call wise here? Like,
Yeah.
there's no benefit, right? So let's break down like the benefit of them throwing that goal ball. You catch that goal ball, AJ gets tackled at the 16-yard line. What difference does it make if Jake Elliott still has to kick a field goal? So what difference does it make if he catches that ball at the 30 or at the 20 or at the 15? If you're scoring, unless you're scoring a touchdown on that play, it makes no difference when you only needed 3. You don't do that. Okay, I'm done.
No, I totally feel you. So I'm going to ask you final thoughts on this game, and then I'm going to lead us into our next category here.
Okay. Final thoughts. This team, the vibes are off. It's not over. I still believe that the Eagles are talented enough. Should everything go right, they can make a run. If they at least get the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed, depending on how that works out. If they get home playoff games, and they don't have to go through at least Dallas, because if they have to play Dallas at home, it's over. And I'm not. You guys are going to make it to the NFC Championship, but we would have to play the Cowboys first if they were the 2nd seed. So my concern is that that this team just needs to figure out something, and they need to They need to get their offense back on track. They need to find some layups. They need to stop acting like they're the Golden State Warriors of football and they can just shoot threes all the time. They can't. They are going away from what's not working. Like, they're going to the things that aren't working. They need to find creative ways to give themselves more layups and just go back to Eagle football where you're just chipping away play by play, breaking down the defense. They had those possessions in this game. They had a 15 play drive at the beginning of the second half, a 12 play drive at the beginning of the game. Do those things that work, because, and like, I don't understand why they want to try and go for those knockout punches when you don't have to. Your knockout punch is just willing your way to the victory. And so,
especially against Seattle,
you didn't need to do it. Against Drew Lock, you didn't need to do it. And
yeah,
on
it's
that
not even Seattle.
one play that pissed me off was, again, 3rd down defense didn't change. The 3rd down defense were still allowing first downs, even if it's 3rd and 18, when we were in prime position to get a first down. But on that Drew Lock and that first part of it, with when they were backed up at their own 8, he threw a ball and Kevin Byard had his hands on it. Like they tip it, he throws a fastball he didn't need to, and the Eagles defenders are right there, and that's been the luck this year. The Eagles they don't have turnovers because they're missing so many opportunities that last year they were getting. And so the only way this season turns around is if, again, luck has to be involved, but they need to find the easy stuff. They need to take these next 3 weeks against Tommy Cutlet twice and freaking, the Cardinals. You can't lose any of these games. This is it. Like, you already you shouldn't have lost the Seattle game. That was already a must win, and they flopped. And it was weird being on the other side of the coin, especially in a game that it just felt like we were in control of the whole time. Even when the Seahawks were making runs, it just felt like, oh, the Eagles are going to take this. So, final thought. Season's not over. I'm pissed, and I'm a little panicked. But I'm not out on this team. I still believe in this team. So we're gonna discuss what I am afraid of moving forward here, but we'll move on here. We'll go we'll talk about now we can break down some stuff with the Monday night game with the 49ers versus the Ravens. So we alluded to this point earlier. I want to ask you, do you think oh, and I'll throw the statistic too, and you already know the statistic because I showed you it, or I told you it, and I'm sure you've seen it before. The past 7 Monday Night Football underdogs have won straight up, and that included the Eagles game. Do you think that at 5.5 point underdogs, like, do you think that's a bit disrespectful to the Ravens, or are you like, or do you think that's about right given just how good the Niners have been? The Ravens are dealing with injuries. They just lost one of their running backs to a very gruesome injury, but they still have the backfield. They still have Lamar. Their pass catchers are always here and there. But do you think 5.5 is fair? Do you think 5.5 is disrespecting the Ravens a bit from your perspective?
It's a good question. I have to step back from being a Niners fan to answer this. And ultimately, the answer is it's not disrespectful. The reason being, the Niners all season long, I take that back. The Niners, when healthy in the last 2 years since obtaining Brock Purdy as quarterback one, have not lost a game. And they've played a lot of very, very good ball clubs in those games.
Mm-hmm.
So when I evaluate it from an outside perspective, I look at it and I'm like, the Ravens, 4 weeks ago, you and I weren't talking about the Ravens being a top AFC team, were we?
I was saying they could be if they won if they won the few games. They needed to prove it to me a bit more.
There were ifs. They have to prove it. They have to prove, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of scenarios that needed to play out, a lot of situations that needed to come to fruition. They did. They absolutely did. And they've proved that. But for the most part, with exception to about 3 weeks, the Niners have been considered the top or one of the top teams in the NFC and the league. And
for sure.
So when I look at that and I think about it and I'm like, all right, Niners, Ravens, Christmas night, freaking awesome matchup. Merry Christmas, America.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting a ball game and a half, man. This is going to be phenomenal. I'm so stoked. And I hope that the Ravens get healthy. I hope that we get semi-healthy. Like, I just want to have as close of a matchup as possible, right? I want to see how we match up. But when I think about it and I'm like, I look at these two teams, 5.5 points, it doesn't seem that disrespectful. I get it. If you're a Ravens fan, if you're anybody who hates the Niners, I get it. If you're like 5.5, that's absolutely disrespectful to Lamar Jackson. Okay. But the Niners defense is popping off. The Niners offense is popping off. And when both have been on, the offense and defense, and when both have been on, you can't beat this team. And I say that with a Niner fan confidence, because I'm not saying that we're going to win this game outright by more than 5.5 points. We could absolutely lose this game. What I'm saying is, if our offense and our defense shows up like we should expect them to week in and week out with this absolute ballistic roster that we have, there's no reason why week in and week out we shouldn't show up, right? With exception to injury.
Mm-hmm.
If they show up and they play the ball game that we expect the Niners to play, 5.5 points, that's actually respectful to the Ravens. Am I wrong for thinking that?
No, I don't think you're wrong for thinking that at all. And this will be a great test because there's outside of the Browns game, but again, you didn't get a full chance to play fully against the Browns. This is going to be the best defensive test that this offense will have because the Ravens defense is actually the number one defense right now for the whole year. The Niners have been the number one over this past little stretch, but the Ravens are also the best road defense in the NFL. So this is going to be an awesome chance. And they're also 6-1 on the road this year.
Mm-hmm.
They're also Lamar is also 6-1 as an underdog. So they're used to it, and that's the fun part about this game is that they're in position where they're used to it. And no, the thing is, I'm curious. I think the matchup I'm really curious to see is the Niners defense versus the Ravens offense, and I feel like the Brock Purdy haters are gonna want it the other way around. But I'm like, if you guys just shut down Lamar Jackson, I don't know who the heck is gonna come to San Francisco and beat you guys. Like that's if that if it's a high scoring game, then I'm like, okay, this is gonna be fun. The defense might have some issues that aren't showing against these, lesser teams, but then against these awesome teams, there might be a sign of struggle. But the Ravens will have been the only team to really give you guys issues if it is a shootout. Um, so I'm looking forward to that, and you know, that's I don't think it's unfair. I was curious about what you thought in terms of like the 5.5 point spread. I think the Niners just kind of are that dominant. If it was on the road, if it was at Baltimore, 5.5 would be very disrespectful. But
Absolutely.
so that because that's implying that you guys are 8 points better. That's tough. But the Niners have so much working for them, like the way that I forget exactly what it was. Um, there was a stat in terms of DVOA where this version of the Niners offense is comparable to the 1989 Niners and there was like a 1980s Packers team. I forget exactly what year they were.
Oh yeah.
And then those teams won the Super Bowl by a significant margin. Like they
Yep.
blew out the team. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I could they're watching the Niners play. It's the polar opposite. It's like watching the Eagles last year. I've had this feeling where I was like, there's no team that could come in and like not get blown out by this team.
Right.
And I I watched the Niners and I'm like, that's why I'm excited for this matchup because I'm curious to see if the class of the AFC can. Because if the Ravens can't, I don't think Miami can. I don't think Kansas City could this year. This version of Kansas City can't. So, this is probably the closest thing you'll have to a litmus test. You guys will get the bye most likely, especially if you win this. You'll clinch. You'll for sure, no doubt. You
We
won't
need 2
actually
more wins.
you won't actually clinch it, but I'm like, you're not going to lose against Washington at least. The
Right.
Rams, I don't know what the divisional. You never know what those, but um, it just makes me wonder. Like this game is going to be fun. It better be fun.
Yeah.
It better not be a stinker. It better like the Eagles have played on prime time and just given everyone stinkers. I'm sorry that we haven't been more competitive. It's just annoying, and disappointing, and embarrassing. But
Well,
I don't.
we're not talking about that trash team right now, Marcos. We're
Yeah,
talking about the Niners.
you're
No, I'm
right.
just
You're right.
kidding.
Let me get
But
back from my depression. But yeah.
but where it really boils down to in this one for me is the Niners historically, I say historically, within the last, I want to say 5-6 years, have struggled with. Oh, let me put it this way: the Niners, since getting Kyle Shanahan, have struggled with mobile quarterbacks. A quarterback who can get out of the pocket, run for a first down, keep the drive going, and just tear you apart with 14, 15, 16 play drives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a team that can eat the clock, manage the game against Kyle Shanahan. Kyle's like, oh my God, what do I do? Like he freaks out. He cowers in
Especially
a
if he's
corner, right?
behind.
Right. And so where I do get concerned is with Lamar Jackson, knowing his mobility, knowing how reliable he is through the air, at least with, 20 yards and closer to him throws. Even deep balls are nice, but he's not as effective in the deep ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a lot of more faith lately in our deep ball coverage. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm seeing a scenario where the Niners could lose this game. And if we don't contain Lamar, totally.
Right.
If he pops off, MVP. And I will support it. If he goes off for like, I will say
Even
if he goes
300 yards is a lot for him.
that's what I'm going to say. If that was what I was going to say is over 300 yards, I will take him as the MVP candidate running with CMC. It won't be against Brock, especially if Brock does like a pick and just kind of plays a subpar game, sub Brock Purdy game, that's where I'll be like, it's Lamar and it's CMC. And then Lamar, based on the rest of the year, if he goes off, have it, King. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get you. You're a great quarterback in this league. You got this.
Yeah.
There's a scenario, Marcos,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm actually okay with the Niners losing this game. And the reason being is we came out of the bye against Jacksonville,
Mm-hmm.
and we've run the freaking table against every team we've played.
Convincingly.
Yeah. And I'm a little bit nervous when it comes to this game, if we were to blow it out of the water, that they go, no team in the league can beat us. No one. Not a single soul. And then we go into the playoffs, we get a bye, and we're like, we're kicking back on our couch. We're watching these crap teams play their games, just getting ready for the Niners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we roll in to the, second week, and we forget how to play football.
You get
Because
the
we're
best
like,
version of one team.
right. Because we're like, we're going to run the table on these fools. They don't know what's coming. And they're like, we just played a game of football and beat whoever.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're ready for you, MFers. And we're going to bring it at you. And they bring it at the Niners. The Niners aren't ready for that. And here we are, a absolute Super Bowl caliber, should make it to the Super Bowl, if not win it this year, team.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it like, I think it's time to give this up.
I guess so. And I also think when it comes to specifically Lamar, I think people are like, oh, just look at what they did with Jalen Hurts. Right. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, first off, Jalen's crippled right now. Second, Lamar and Jalen are two very different style of runners. Lamar is just so much more slinky and able to he's just more shifty. He's a hard bring down, and he's a tall dude. He's tough to bring down.
He's a tall running back.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think it's interesting that, he's not like Jalen. If you force Jalen out of the pocket, like you can catch him, but Lamar, you're not going to be able to beat him sideline to sideline and pin him down and catch him. He'll be able to turn that corner on you. So that'll be the biggest difference maker for the Ravens, is Lamar is able to be creative and allow and keep plays alive. It doesn't matter how great your defensive backfield is. It's almost impossible to guard receivers for 8 to 11 seconds. So it's like, if he's out there extending plays, that might be an issue. But at the same time, this will be interesting to see if the Ravens can generate a lead early, can get ahead. Then this could be a position where the Ravens are leading going into the fourth, and the Niners will need Brock Purdy, and that's the thing I think everyone's just waiting on, is can we get a big game where Brock Purdy's trailing, where he can show us that he can win, because
by himself lead a drive and win it.
Yeah. Like, that was the stamp on Jimmy, right? Like, Jimmy had been put in it throughout his career in general, and he had won a few of those situations with San Francisco. So like, he's good enough to win and what in this position, but he's also choked off a couple games. So it's also like, where, Brock hasn't gotten that chance yet, and that's not his fault. Like, that's not his fault.
That's the biggest difference between Jimmy and him is Jimmy was a game manager and put us in positions to lose a game and then somehow led a game-winning drive, versus Brock Purdy, who just dominates a game from the start. But anyway, continue.
No, exactly. And so, and that's just the Niners that's their MO. Get ahead and just keep the lead. That's all you got to do, because you can run the ball. You can use CMC over and over and over and over again. He does lead the league in rushing attempts. The Niners have the lowest passing attempts, yet they're the second most efficient offense in the entire league in terms of whatever the number was. But they're making the most of every play that they run, and that's the power of the Niners. So if it's not like, because Mike McDaniel is a descendant, right? Sean McVay is a descendant. Like, the Shanahan style offense is a very timing based offense. But we watched, like, the Eagles when they played the Dolphins. They threw 2 off the rhythm, and that was a completely different ballgame. You've seen teams try to throw Brock off, and the rhythm it never seems to waver. It never seems to falter. That's, I think, the one thing people underrate Brock. I think people just they're looking at him and they're like, he doesn't look big. He doesn't look like he'd be this good, but he's so much smarter than the guy, like, than the defense he's going up against, and he has the weapons. So he's like, I can make use of this guy. Like, Debo will bail me out on some plays. CMC might bail me out on some plays. Brandon Ayuk's gonna cut and break someone's ankles and make me look good. And at the same time, I'm gonna make this dot that no one else can make. And then people will be like, "Oh yeah, he had that one good throw." When in reality, the whole game he has been doing his job and putting the ball in positions where this team can make the most of it. And I can very much see him carving up this Baltimore defense, even though Baltimore is very good, especially in the corners. Um, but where they can be got is with the use of your ultimate weapon, CMC. They are very bad against running backs who are receivers. Like they, so I think that will be this might be a dink and dunk game, and then people are going to be like, "Oh, but he's dinking and dunking." You take what the defense gives you. That's something that the Eagles have not done this year. They're like, "Oh, we're just going to
Right.
take our deep shots." If Jalen just took what the defense gave him, which he did a lot of last year, which is why he looked so much better and didn't turn the freaking ball over. Brock doesn't turn the freaking ball over because he's taking exactly what the defense is giving him. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. I don't understand where it's like, oh, he's not special because he's not chucking the ball 60 yards and making this heroic play every day. So I have a lot more confidence in the Niners than I do the Ravens this game, but I will admit I did pick the Ravens to win this game on my picks.
I was gonna say, why the hell did you pick the Ravens then?
I'm going with my gut in the sense of almost kind of like you in the sense of like it almost feels like you're due. And if there is a game to lose, this one would be it. I would like to see it, not even for like the 1 seed chance at all, because you guys own the tiebreaker, so it wouldn't make a difference either way. But I think it would make the NFL season more interesting in the sense that that'll be the topic. Oh, are the Ravens the team to beat? Oh, are the Niners actually flawed? I am curious to see how well the Ravens run offense, including Lamar, Gus Edwards. Can they just take it to you guys? You guys don't, I know Eric Armstead was on the injury report. I know Javon's not going to be in. This is the best opportunity you're going to get to try to run it down the Niners' throats and hope that, that could be the piece. If maybe the Ravens just run the ball down your throats, take time of possession, the offense only gets on the field 4 or 5 times versus the million times you guys get to play because you guys are just cooking. So it makes me wonder. I think if there's any team that could give you trouble defensively, it's the Ravens.
Yep. And that's I think what I'm most like excited for, because ultimately it becomes a situation where you really want to evaluate where your team is at, give them the best team in the league at this point in the season, one-on-one matchup, and here it is, Christmas Day. Like, I'm stoked, man.
I know it's gonna be too much fun.
I'm so excited, and like that's kind of why I go back to, it's not even a loser mentality. If we lose this game, I will be okay. We have the game barrier. Thank you, Cowboys. Thank you, Eagles, for choking the crap out of your weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
And giving us that cushion, because this week is going to be an evaluation week. It's not like a win or die scenario for us, right?
Exactly.
We have that cushion now. It's we win and we know we're the best team in the league at that point, or it's lose and we figure out how we beat the Ravens, because we've already proved we can beat any NFC team that is thrown at us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know those playoff games are going to be entirely different than any regular season matchup, but you've proven you can beat them before. And knowing Kyle Shanahan and knowing the guys that we have on this roster, I'm like, any scenario, I really do, even if we're down 14 points, I do believe they will believe there's a point they can come back in that game and win.
For sure.
And so to get to the Super Bowl, like, if we don't make it to the Super Bowl, it's an extreme loss.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the NFC Championship game, if we lose that game, it's an extreme loss. There's no reason why, there's no reason why the Niners right now don't make it to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows that. It's evident at this point. It's this AFC matchup against the Ravens, against the Ravens, who are destined to be the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC, right?
Yeah.
In the AFC.
Correct,
and so this is that Super Bowl preview. And then there's that little thing where they do the Super Bowl the numbers,
Yeah.
and the
I
colors.
saw that.
So there's a thing for anybody who doesn't know where the NFL will come out with, like, when it's Super Bowl, XLV, whatever, they'll do some random color scheme. And for the
Mhm.
past, I think, what was it, like 3 years, they've done a random color scheme, and it's been the same colors for the teams who have made the Super Bowl at the end of the year.
Yeah, that was wild. I'm like,
And
the
what's
NFL,
interesting,
are they scripted?
is this year it's red and purple, which is Niners
Hmm.
and Ravens. Or is it the Vikings out of nowhere?
I know, right? Is it the Vikings and Chiefs?
Chiefs, right?
Oh God, that'd be wild.
That would be wild. But no, I
Yeah.
will wrap this up because I want to talk about Giants and, your matchup that you should be winning. So ultimately, gotta contain Lamar. Gotta come into Levi, like, hold home ground. I know they're dominant on the road, the Ravens. Let's make a statement. And the thing is, like, you've given yourself this cushion. You haven't given yourself. Other teams gave you this cushion. So now you can learn this opponent. You can learn what needs to change. If it's a humbling experience, that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not get dominated by Ravens. Like, if we get dominated, I'll be nervous. If it's a close game, I'm going to be just fine.
Right, exactly. So
what was your score?
My score, oh man, what did I put?
27-24?
Yeah, I put it like that because I'm like, if there's any defense that can give you trouble, it may be this one. And
I feel it.
And they might do just enough offense. They are going to have to score more than 25 points to beat you guys. That's what it's going to take. It's going to be close.
Absolutely.
But I don't think either team's going to drop 30. I think it'll be a good offensive game, but not great by either one. What was your score for this game?
It's a great question. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick because when we do talk next, we're not going to talk Eagles Giants. We are kind of, because the Eagles have to win, but still.
Mm-hmm. So I had Niners 28-23 for the similar reason. I just don't. This Ravens defense is legit. I know 28 points is still a lot, but look at how many points the Niners scored just last week against the Cardinals defense that I know they're not great, but it's an NFL defense.
For sure.
To put up 44 points. I mean, look at the freaking Raiders putting up 63 points against the Chargers.
Brandon Staley's career is over.
Mopping the absolute floor with them.
I was happy with that.
You put up anything over 30, and it's like, damn.
It's a good day.
So the Ravens, great defense. One of the top, if not the top defense in the league. Yeah, I think if anybody has a chance to hold the Niners under 30, it's going to happen.
I agree. So I wanted to pick the Niners, but I also wanted to be different because I think I have enough of a lead on you in the picks department where I think I'm good for the rest of this year to mess around with a few of those. I'll take that moral victory. LMAO, whatever.
We've both been popping off. Get out of here with that.
I know, it's been a good year. Next year, we're going to challenge ourselves. This year, because it was our first time kind of ever doing this, we're just doing it regular, just games straight up. Next year, we're going to challenge ourselves. We're going to also do against the spread. So we're going to see how we do against the spread and see if we can do that. Maybe we'll put in some like actual betting picks. We'll see how that goes. But with that being said, so for this next portion, the Eagles play the Giants twice, and we should win these games. I don't care how bad we are. The Giants are worse. Tommy Cutlets had a nice 3-week stretch. He's holding the ball at an insane pace. Jalen is the most in the league, but if Tommy DeVito was holding the ball for a whole season, he would be the worst by a lot. And this team is rebuilding, and at this point, if I were them, I would get as good of a draft pick as possible. So my main concern is who would I want to face if in the first round, because there's a scenario with is the 5th seed really the best seed for either the Niners, for either the Eagles or the Cowboys. The Cowboys don't want the 5th seed. Yes, you're going to get an easy first round matchup against Tampa Bay, most likely. I don't know if New Orleans, they'll have a chance. They're playing right now, aren't they?
They're getting absolutely demolished by the Rams right now.
Yes. Okay, I picked the Rams to win. So
yeah, same.
For speaking of the Rams, so the Rams right now are in the 7th seed, or are they 6th? Because so right now I know the Minnesota Vikings were
Question.
6. That's the thing. Because Minnesota's losing, so and I know we just lost to Seattle. We gave them hope, so they can. There's realistically there's like 3 teams that can be the 6th seed, the 6th or 7th seed.
Yeah, they are the 7th seed.
The Rams are.
So, all right,
Yeah. So
they're
what's up right
tied
now
with the Vikings and the Bucks.
for the 7th?
They're all 3 of them are 7-7.
But the Bucks
So,
own the division right now, so
yeah.
they're fine in 4th. Well, who's underneath them? I'm curious. So right now it's
Um,
the Vikings and Rams at 7-7. Rams are going to be 8-7, so they're going to move up to 6.
Seahawks are 7-7, but I think the
Oh,
Rams own the tiebreaker there. Saints are 7-7, but that's
gonna
obviously going to be
change.
changing there.
It's gonna change.
And then Falcons are 6-8.
Okay,
Packers
that'll
are 6-8, but the Packers don't have a favorable schedule. I
schedule.
don't think I know they play Carolina this week, but I think they have a
Yeah.
tough few matchups coming up. But yeah,
So let's start with those 5 teams. I'm assuming that the Eagles are going to get the 2nd seed if they win out, right? The worst we do is the 3rd. But with the 2nd seed, we play one of those 7th seed teams. If there was a team I'd pick, I would pick. That's tough. Either the Vikings or because those other teams. The annoying part about this is I don't want to play the Rams. The Rams are the team I think in the NFC. Like if there's a wild card team you don't want to play, it's the Rams. So
they're hot right now. They're about to win their 5th game straight.
That offense is crazy. That offense,
Yeah.
and the Eagles played them earlier, but Cooper Kupp had just come back. Like it was
Yep.
his first game back. It wasn't really established. They were clearly out of rhythm, and the Eagles defense is tired and cooked. And if they were to play first round, that Rams team could drop 40 on us easy.
Bro, that receiving core is actually kind of legit. Like
it's
Puka
insane.
Nakua, Tutu is
Yeah.
Tutu is still getting some reps, and obviously Cooper Kupp. Like
Yeah, so Tutu is like their speed guy. Then you got Puka and Cooper, yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
and Tyler Higbee too. Like they make plays. Like and Matt Stafford is awesome. Matt Stafford is awesome. So I'd be so afraid of playing them, and I will do everything in my power to avoid it. I hope they win. They're going to win this game, but I hope they win their next game. So when they lose to the Niners in Week 18, it won't. They won't end up falling to us. I would like to play the Vikings because they seem the team to be the most dysfunctional in the sense of their quarterback situation. It's either Josh Dobbs, who's been benched for former Niner Nick Mullins. Yeah, Nick Mullins is out here trying to keep that season afloat.
I always like Nick, man. Shout out Nick.
That's fair. But the Vikings defense will give us some trouble. They gave us fits week 2, and they almost took it to us. It's tough. The Eagles are in a tough spot because given how they played, especially against Seattle, and we could play Seattle again, but it would be in Philly, so that would be a different story. But the Eagles haven't given us a reason to think that they can beat anybody anymore. Like that's where I'm at right now. There's no evidence you can show me that they can go out in a playoff game and win, guarantee a win against anybody that we play. And that's where I'm at right now. And I think this is the reality of it. I'm not going to sit here and try and say, oh, we're a great team, optimistic. If we heat up, we are the most dangerous team based off of the personnel that we have. And
now's the time, Marcos.
This is it. The Eagles have 3 weeks to figure this out before going into the playoffs, and their first round matchup will be favorable. They will be favored no matter who they play, whether it's even if they fall to the 5th seed, Bucks on the road. We will win that game. We dominated the Bucks on the road earlier.
Yeah,
that's not going to change. Like it'll be a closer game, maybe, but we're going to win that game. But I'm not confident against a team like the Rams, whose offense could cook us. The Vikings I have a better chance against because their offense is inconsistent, even with Jettas, because they have Nick Mullins now, even with Josh Dobbs, inconsistent. Packers maybe a little afraid of, but their defense is worse than the Eagles, surprisingly, somehow. And the Seahawks would scare me because they'd have Geno in that game. And so it's just like
they already beat you with Drew
Lock. And they showed that they can run on us with their 13 personnel. So it's just like we don't have the personnel to handle this. And again, I don't like Bradbury may be washed, but if you sit him for 3 weeks, we got Avonte Maddox coming back from a torn pectoral. I thought they said it was season ending week 2, but he's been cleared for the 21-day practice window. He fully participated in practice.
It's freaking awesome.
Yeah. And he's an underrated slot corner because he spends a lot of time hurt. So if he can stay healthy, that's a huge win, especially this time of year when we have to go up against the good teams. And that could benefit us if he gets a couple weeks in the system, just gets back to his reps. I want to see Bradbury benched, let Avante play, let Keely Ringo play, and Josh Doe play on the outside until Darius Slay comes back. Like that's what I want because I believe that we can beat these teams even with our backup corners. Like if we don't, then we're not winning a playoff game. Like that's where I'm at right now. If we don't run the table here, we're not winning a playoff game. I don't care who we play, we're not going to win it because we have no excuse to lose to these teams. We had no excuse to lose to Drew Lock, but at the same time, the Seahawks are no slouch compared to these three that we're facing. Records be damned. The Cardinals record speaks for who they are, and the Giants record does not. They got lucky that they won 3 in a row, and now they're not going to win another game this season. So it's just,
So I got to be honest with you, Marcos, because I look at it from outside. I'm not a fan of the Eagles. I hate the Eagles.
I'm stressed.
Where I know they should beat the Giants. We all know as NFL fans they should beat the Giants. Mm-hmm. Where can they lose this game? How could they? Is it possible?
It is. It's the NFL. Anything's possible, right? Any given Sunday. The only way they win is if they allow Tommy DeVito to dominate. Like that's how they win. The defense is gonna give the Eagles trouble. Wink Martindale is he's a blitz heavy guy. Defense. Their corners are solid. Adoree Jackson's really good. Yep. So there is a world where the offense just stumbles and we're just keeping them in the game the whole time. So that's
the Niners dotted them up, but yeah.
No, of course, right. But historically, the past couple seasons, Sirianni and these Eagles have cooked these Giants. Yeah. Every version that they bring out there, they've just had a system that's just worked. So I do believe that the Eagles will continue to big brother the Giants, but there is a world that the offense just continues to look broken. They don't go for the easy stuff, and we allow them to stay in the game and give them a chance. And that's a world that we can lose. And that's where I'm afraid of for the Arizona game, because they can run the ball down our throats if they wanted to. And there's a real chance that we could let Kyler go crazy and our offense doesn't keep up. And Jonathan Gannon, that's his revenge game. If there's one thing that they can do is play spoiler to the Eagles, they would love that. So these teams are going to come in motivated playing spoiler against a team that looks broken right now. So,
yeah. You know what's unfortunate is when I look at the Eagles' last 3 games, you guys got the Giants this week, the Cardinals, and then the Giants again. I hate to say it, but they're all lose-lose situations, because it's like, yeah, the Eagles beat the Giants by however many, but it's the Giants. Yeah, the Eagles beat the Cardinals by however many, but it's the Cardinals. And so it's this like situation externally. You look at it and you're like, it doesn't really matter that much. But
yeah.
What could be nice is you have these 3 weeks to evaluate your team, to figure out what could work, and to almost test some things out,
mm-hmm.
And try some new things, maybe some new players, some new matchups, what be it, right? You have an opportunity to get right against some shitty teams. So this is, for Eagles fans, this is the stretch where the wins won't feel the best, because they're not against great teams by any means. But it's a good chance for the Eagles as a team to get right in the head, get right personnel-wise, and figure out some things schematically going into round 1 of the playoffs. Because y'all playing week 1. Get over it. Y'all playing week 1.
It's what's going to happen. So I agree with everything. There's no reason not to discount these potential 3 games. But I'm not discounting anything that the Eagles have done to get to this point. I had them 13-4 coming into this year. And I think that was overachieving by most people's standards based off of the schedule that they were given in the first place. People thought this was going to be an 11-5 team, a 11-6 team, a 10-7 team, because they're like, oh, they're not going to run the table on the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Dolphins. These teams are all hot. The Eagles have won tough games. I don't I still believe that version of the Eagles can show if they feel like they can get there. So this is these losses, and every team goes through bad stretches. The Niners lost 3 in a row. Yes, it's completely different because we don't look like we're in freaking shambles, and you guys didn't panic when you lost 3 in a row. The Eagles have panicked by making unusually dysfunctional organizational changes in a way that doesn't demonstrate like, oh, we're a 10-4 team. We're one of
Right.
the few 10-4 teams or above in the league. So, but we have the tools needed to succeed in the playoffs, and all we have to do is just find a way, find what, like you mentioned, find what can work, find something, find a counter punch, do the things, just do the things that make Philadelphia football. Like
Exactly.
we can run it down a team's throats, and yet every time we get going with the run, we decide to switch it up. Every time we get something going that's working, we switch it up. We're getting in our own way. We're overthinking all the simple things that we do, and it's frustrating the hell out of me. But these 3 weeks can be get right weeks because we earned the right to suck, if that makes sense. Just like the Niners could lose these next two
You
and
did.
still win the 1 seed,
Yep.
and people still want to mention the 3 losses that you have because they can't pretend like that didn't happen. Just like
From
the Eagles.
7 weeks ago? What?
Yeah, you can do
No,
that.
I know. I know. You
Exactly.
absolutely
So it's
can.
like people are still giving the Cowboys crap about the Niners loss at week 5. So it's like those
You
things
should. You got blown out.
will stick. And
Yeah.
this 3 game losing streak is always going to be now the shadow that's going to linger on this team. If winning fixes everything, doesn't matter who you beat. So at least in the locker room for the players. So as a fan base, you could worry about, oh, you beat tomato cans, that doesn't matter. But if the Eagles win these games, go into the playoffs 13-4, second seed, and we get a matchup against a favorable team like the Vikings or the Packers, or I know we listed a few that I'm losing on right now, but either way, if we can avoid teams like the Rams that may give us fits, like we shouldn't have to feel the need to avoid a team, but that's just we need. If we can get one playoff win, I believe in this team the rest of the way, like in the sense that they can do it, because you watch the Eagles in 2017, they were the underdog the entire way, and they just found a way to mentally find themselves, even though the end of the season they fell apart, and they
Yep.
still found a way to win when it mattered the most. This team has found ways to win when it matters most plenty of times this year. So I still believe that team can show up when it matters the most in the playoffs.
I agree. So, on that note, we talked about a team that's been struggling lately
Mm-hmm.
in the NFL. I want to transition for the last 15, 20 minutes to a team that you and I both love
If that.
and hold near and dear to our hearts. But what the hell is happening with the Sacramento Kings right now, Marcos?
I think the Sacramento Kings are exactly what they are. I think
Yeah?
with winning, so they're 16-10. This time last year we were worse than that. It doesn't. This is where they won 3 in a row against not so great teams, but then they lost brutally last night to the Boston Celtics.
Brutally.
Brutally. D Fox had a bad birthday. So, but what I take away from this is that the Kings just aren't there yet. And I think it's hard as a fan base to not want to elevate your team when they do well. But the harsh reality is that we are a playoff team. We are a team that is capable of making the playoffs now, on a yearly basis based off the roster that we have. But when we go up against the true contenders, we fold. We don't have that roster yet. That's where I view this team, because I think 16-10 is exactly the kind of record that our team is. We're on pace to hit the same amount as last year in that sense. So I think we're exactly where we are. And it sucks because we
There
want to be
is
better.
there is a concerning trend with the Kings right now. And I'm going to call them a heartbreak team. I talked to you a little bit about it outside of the pod. I've come up with this idea that a heartbreak team is a team that will do very, very well in the regular season, let's say first place to fifth place, because in the loaded Western Conference, to be in the top 5, hell yeah, man, you're doing great. But I could see the Kings in anywhere between third and fifth place right now and losing in the first round within 5 or 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
And the concern lies with every single time the Kings have played a physical team, a more physical than them team, they have not responded. They shut down. They get, I don't know what happens. I'm not going to say they get scared. It's just like their normal offensive, defensive tendencies completely go out the window, and it becomes this isolation ball, and we rely on Harrison Barnes and like guys off the bench, Trey Lyles to knock down some buckets for us in ISO plays. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like this isn't Kings basketball. They completely, physical teams completely take the Kings out of their normal rhythm, offensively
sure.
and defensively. And it's so frustrating to see. And that's why I believe they fall into this category that I almost don't want to be a playoff team, because what I don't want to do is be convinced all year long that we're a top team in this league to then be blown out in the playoffs.
No,
Last
for
year,
sure.
7-game series. I don't care that I care that we lost that series. Don't get me wrong.
We could have beat the Lakers in their series too.
Oh,
That's
we can keep going with this.
That was our chance in that sense.
Absolutely. But this year, not going to happen, because when you look at the West and you look at how loaded it is, Ja Morant, I know some of y'all forgot about Ja Morant. Ja Morant's back.
Fresh legs.
At least for a little bit. We'll see if he has another issue and gets suspended.
I think their hole is just a little too deep. It also would have to depend on who falls off. Like the Rockets would have to really stumble. But
absolutely. I
it's
mean,
not out of the realm of possibility. They're still in it, but
for sure. I mean, they're 8-19 right now. It's doable for sure. They're only
they just got to get the play in.
What are they? 6 games out of 10th place, which is the play-in, which that's doable. But I look at the West and I look at this team. The Kings have beat teams like Oklahoma City, the Nuggets, Minnesota,
Dallas.
Which Minnesota, in my opinion, is the most overrated team. I still don't believe in their record. I really don't. But maybe I just haven't been paying attention enough to them. I'm not convinced. But I look at these teams. We've beaten a lot of them. But then I look at games against Clippers, against Golden State. Since Game 7 of last year, we've only won 1 game against them. And every game has felt, even that game felt so demoralizing, because we were down in a 24-point slump. Like, there's so many matchups in the West right now that are so frustrating as a Kings fan, because we just can't break that wall where it feels like we can't beat this team. Right. I look at it right now. There's 4 matchups in the West that I don't want to see this particular team,
because we get
matched
swept
up against us. Yeah. It's nerve-wracking, man.
I agree. And again, I've been on this where we're a couple pieces away, and it sucks because it felt like this version of the Kings could build off of the success, and that's the risk you take. Like, they were in a position, it's not like for lack of trying. They tried to bring in more free agents, and it just didn't work out this year. So you bank on signing Domas. That's going to work. I don't care I understand what the narrative behind Domas is, but he is everything that we could have asked for. And De'Aaron has developed insane, and Keegan out here having historic nights. He's starting to blossom into his own. But we are so far from a finished product, and we are a couple trades away, or a couple big moves away from taking that next step. And we talked about it on the Friday 5. We want, OG and Pascal for the Raptors were available, but they wanted Keegan, and we're like, nope. And now, I'm looking at guys like Kyle Kuzma, and
I'm going to be honest with you real quick. I'm going to interrupt you. I think that Raptors trade is still on the table. I think we could still make that trade without Keegan. Just going to say.
It depends on if the Raptors are just tanking, right? Like if they just lose a bunch of their games and they're like, okay,
Absolutely.
we need to start this over. They do have the leverage because they're still in contention for at least a play-in spot. So
Yep. That's what
if
it boils down to.
yeah, so we're hoping that they tank, so then maybe those guys become available and maybe it's easier. The problem is that's the problem with the trade season. We're still a whole month away from before things really have to kick into gear. Like trades don't happen until like a week before or right up till the trade deadline anyway. So
Right.
it's tough. But a guy like Kuzma, that team is tanking. They're suck, and he's upset. He's not happy, and he would be a nice fit, and we wouldn't have to give up Keegan for him. And him and Keegan together would be a very nice forward duo, and I think Kuzma fits that role, especially with the experience he garnered playing as that third and fourth option in LA. And he can come in
Yeah.
and be aggressive and take a little pressure off. His numbers are wonderful, and it's not even for lack of he's playing winning basketball. The team is just they have Jordan Poole, and he's the ultimate loser basketball player in the sense of for your team.
Yep.
And then you look at guys like Laurie Markin, and he might be available. The Kings, do we want to just up our size a little bit because against teams like the Celtics that have Chris Stapps, it'd be nice to have Domas and Laurie at the same time who can also attack.
I didn't even think about that.
These teams with major sizes are the problem. So
Yeah.
we're always going to run into this issue when we have to play Joel, when we have to play Giannis, and when we have to play these. Even Jokic gives us a little trouble, but we can run them. We can run them tired in a 7-game series. But even that, if they don't sweep us first, but like these teams with the dominant bigs and the bigger sized wings give us trouble, and we need more size on the wings and more aggressive scorers on the wings. And
Yep.
and our backup big situation is a problem. JaVale is fine; he's serviceable, and we shouldn't have to rely on Alex Len to be the physical big. We need just a few more pieces in spots that are a little bit more important. We got too many guards. Like we don't need Chris Duarte. He's not seeing the floor at all. And we made a trade for him, and we're like, oh, he could be valuable. We drafted Colby Jones. I like Colby Jones. I like the potential that's there, but that's not what we needed. Like I'm watching Tracy Jackson Davis over here for the Warriors, and I was like mouthwatering for him. Like I really like he would be a nice little piece to have.
Yeah.
Like so it's
he's
like
balling right now.
So I'm like Monty's a very guard loving guy. Like Keegan's a wing, but he can play like a guard. So we invested a lot in the guard position, and now it's kind of biting us in the butt because we're just so much smaller than everybody. We can't be playing, Kevin's our 2, and then if we go to Keon, he's 6'5", and then we're going to Malik, and we can't play Davion anymore because Davion and Malik at the same time we're just a tiny team. So, and we watched yesterday Trey Lyles on Nimi Keita. Like Keita was just having his way on the boards.
If you're letting Keita dominate your matchup, like that's how you know you have a problem.
At that point, just put JaVale in because
exactly.
Because that's the same system. Like they have their shooters were just on one, and they are the best 3-point shooting team in the league. So that's just how it goes. Just how it goes.
Look, Boston without Tatum is still a damn good ball club.
Mm-hmm.
Like
and Horford, they were missing Horford too.
And Horford, yep. I mean,
bullcrap.
Shoot, you could even take Jaylen Brown out of that, and they're still really good.
Yeah.
They're not like the dominant Boston Celtics of this year, but they're still a good ball team, man. They built that roster, and they've been building that roster for about 5 years, 6 years.
They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals for the past 5 years straight.
Right.
Like they are that team.
Right. And so when I think of the Kings, it's audacious as hell, but I look at it and I'm like, we're in -1 year of the Boston Celtics, meaning we're about to hit that opportunity where there's going to be a trade, because inevitably there's going to be a trade this year, whether it's a knock it out of the park trade or it's just something to get you on to base 1 or base 2. That is yet to be determined. But it's going to be a trade that gets us in the right direction because in Monty, we trust. And
for sure.
As Kings fans, that is something that we have been led to believe, right? And so we have to continue to believe that because he's done nothing but set us up for success. Yep. And so we have to look at this trade deadline and whether it's a superstar we're not going to get a superstar, whether it's a star that comes into this team or it's a great role player, regardless, it'll probably be the right decision, and it's going to take us to the next step.
Yep.
Whether that next step is dominance in our conference, dominance in our division, that's yet to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
But we're on the right path.
Agreed.
And I
I'm
know
not, yeah.
right now it's shitty because we've lost some games against some teams that we feel like, we should be matching up better against.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily winning, but we shouldn't be getting blown out by 29.4 points against the Boston Celtics in the last 5 games. And we shouldn't be getting blown out. There was a stat I saw. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we've lost games this year by a certain amount of points.
So,
and it's way more that you got it.
So, and this was up to last week after, I forgot what our last loss was, but our last loss prior to this one was also a blowout loss. The Kings have lost more games by 20 points this year. But by this time, the Kings only lost 4 games by 20 or more points last year as a whole. And we've already lost now 7 games by more than 20 points. So it's inconsistent. Louise. We're also the first team based off of last night to hit 21 or more threes and lose by 25 plus points. That's insane. That's bad. That's
in
really
the same
bad.
game.
In the same game, we scored 21. We've hit 21 threes and lost by 25 points. That's the first time ever that's happened.
That is truly living and dying by the 3 ball, and that's something that Matt George of Locked On Kings has been saying for the past 3 weeks, and that's that this Kings team lives and dies by that 3 ball. If it's dropping, nobody keeps up with us.
Mm-hmm.
If it's dropping against subpar to par teams, nobody keeps up with us. We're winning that game by 20 points. If it's a team who's in the Western Conference, because this Western Conference is absolutely loaded, if it's a Western Conference 8-1 position right now, and we're making 20 plus threes, if we're not playing defense, good luck. And that's showing right now. And that's exactly what Marcos was saying. And that's the frustrating part, is just the West got so much better and so much healthier since last year. We've had to deal with that too.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. And we've had to deal with that too.
It's tough.
It sucks. So we will talk more on the Kings. Football is just, at this point a little bit more pressing. We were, once football ends, we're going to be all on the Kings. So, I think we'll cut it off here just because, we're going a little crazy. But I do think if there's any final thoughts, this year is just going to be inconsistent and I don't know what trades are going to happen. I'd like to see a couple of those trades that, the names that we listed out there. I'd love to see them, but this team will be a playoff team. They are a playoff team.
They are.
But we are also a playoff team that could get swept in the first round. And the expectation is to always get better. And we are to me, we are what the Denver Nuggets were in the sense of before Aaron Gordon came to town. We are missing our Aaron Gordon, that one extra guy, that 4th guy who can really make the difference. Because we already have our young forward in Keegan Murray, we have our dominant big in Domas, and we have an awesome point guard. We are missing that 4th piece because Keon is turning into that awesome defender that can come in and make a difference. So we're just missing our Aaron Gordon. We just need somebody like that.
And ultimately, Kings fans, we're looking at it right now. We're upset about the losses that we've sustained, but if you ultimately look at it, we're 16-10 through 26 games. It is better than where we were at last year, as Marcos said, and we are 5th in the Western Conference right now, which is above the Mavericks, the Pelicans, the Lakers, the Rockets, the Suns, the Warriors. There's some good teams down there, guys. We're there. We are there. There's building blocks. And we've also established that Keegan can damn near put up 50 points in a game. So I think we have our 3 for sure.
For sure.
And we've talked about having a 4th in there already. So, guys, we're right there. Hang on. This trade deadline is going to be freaking wild.
It is.
But ultimately, we're going to wrap up this pod. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all so much. Marcos, let everybody know where we can go with our social medias.
So this was episode 21 of the Behind the Back podcast. It's been great. Just like you said, dude. Like, we love everybody that listens and tunes in. All your support. And again, we are now on YouTube, so please feel free to leave some comments on there. Give us a follow, give us a like, subscribe, however you want to call it. And then you can also find us on Twitter/X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And at the same time, please, you can send us an email as well with any comments or questions at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. And we got a fun. We were this, the year's ending, Christmas time. I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas and a holiday season. Happy New Year's as well. We will get we will get a pod in before that, to close out the new year. But we're excited. Fly Eagles fly. I'm still confident. I know Niner gang over there ready for Monday night. We're hopefully both of our teams impress, and that's what we're hoping for. So with that being said, I am Marcos Conan Negron, and next to me here is
Benny the Jet Reds. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry
We love
Christmas,
y'all. Keep up what you're doing. We're gonna be providing you with anything and everything that we can every week. We love bringing you guys these content. We've had so much fun doing it this
For
year,
sure.
and it's just a building block for us. We've learned so much about this pod. We've learned so much about how to bring you guys, enjoyable content.
Mm-hmm.
And feedback has been much appreciated. We've
Seriously.
genuinely listened to it. We love it. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us at any point. We love y'all.
For sure. And we also really love, building off on that final point, we really love the responses to the Friday Five. A lot of good things coming from those short little bursts. We will be doing those in the future because we think it's great. If you want to be involved in the Friday Five, if you want to give us some topics to work with, we would love to hear from you. Comment below what you want us to talk about. We will break that down. Maybe we extend it on a Thursday and Tuesday and make it Thursday 10, Tuesday 10, and get you guys involved. That's what we want from this. We want you guys to get involved in our conversation. So we'll definitely bring back the Friday Five. Stay tuned for more of those. But we'll talk to you guys later. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Peace.